Those kids walked out of those homes. No one pulled them out.
A lot of people die in a lot of really weird ways in this story.
These kind of movies are always very hard to review because I think this is the type of film you should go into knowing as little as possible. Honestly, if you've somehow not seen any of the trailers and you don't know anything about this movie, going in blind is the best way to experience it. And I said the same thing about the director's first movie, Barbarian. The director is Zach Kreger, and he was on The Whitest Kids You Know back in the day, which is an amazing fun fact.
Zach Kreger.
Yeah.
Trevor. Man, what do you got there?
This is a gallon of PCP.
Wow!
He has now stepped into the world of directing horror movies, and when it came to Barbarian a few years ago, that is a movie where I absolutely loved the first half of the movie, and the second half kind of lost me. I still enjoy the entire film, but the second half definitely lost me in that one. When it comes to weapons, that is not the case. I loved this entire movie from start to finish. I love the format, I love the story, I love the mystery, I love the horror, and I love the fantastical elements of it. And most particularly, the acting and the performances in this movie are just phenomenal. But I think this is definitely a much more cohesive, well-constructed, and fully realized film than Barbarian was. And so if you liked Barbarian, I think that you'll enjoy this one a lot more. If you didn't like Barbarian, I think that you should still give this one a chance because it gives you a completely different experience with a little bit of the same kind of flavor, but really it's its own entity entirely. In fact, if I can give this movie the biggest compliment I can think of, at least from my perspective, is that this feels like a Stephen King story. And I mean that in the best ways possible. The most classic Stephen King's It, or Salem's Lot, or The Shining, or some of his early work. This feels like that. And what I mean by that is that you have this sort of horror mystery happening in the background. You get little bits of humor here or there, but the main thing is that it focuses on this lived-in small town and this very strange, peculiar, unsolved mystery that's happened in the town and how much of a toll that takes on the people. And also how all of their lives cross over in different ways, shapes, and forms. They're all dealing with their own personal issues at the same time. They're all coping with their trauma in different ways. And you need kind of this unification, or at least you need pieces of all of their stories to come together in order to get the fully realized plot that is happening here. And without each and every one of them contributing their own little part, you wouldn't make it to the ending that this movie gets to. And so I think it's a really clever way to showcase how different people in this town are handling this event, while also diving deeply into all of their stories with just some amazing performances, like I said, across the board. And I don't know if you can consider it its own genre, but I really like small town mysteries as well. Obviously, coming from a small town myself, I relate to that kind of vibe and that kind of atmosphere a lot more than being in a big city or being out in the middle of nowhere, even though I do kind of live out in the middle of nowhere. But mostly these small town vibes where everybody knows each other, everybody becomes suspicious of one another, everyone's kind of judgmental of one another, and the inner workings of how all of that plays into the movie. Just very relatable for someone like me, like I said, that comes from a small town, and I love how everything begins to come together as you're slowly getting more bits of information about the movie or about the event as it goes on. And that's the great thing about this movie too, is that it really is a story. Like it's something that you can't really predict from start to finish, and you need every little piece of the puzzle to put it together. And I love movies like that. I sometimes it can be fine, but I would say more often than not, I don't like when I can just predict every single thing that's going to happen. I love when movies throw me twists and turns. Now, not twists for the sake of having a twist, but when they're constantly feeding you more information in different ways that gives you a better context for stuff that happened earlier, getting a little bit more information every step of the way, ultimately leading you to something that you probably couldn't have predicted just walking in and only seeing the first 20 minutes. In fact, I would say if you watch just the first 20 minutes credits and you somehow predict the end of this movie, then you have some kind of crazy psychic power, and please teach it to me. I'll give you the most bare bones idea of the story, and I'm not really going to tell you anything that's not already in the trailer, so no spoilers here, but this whole movie is predicated around this event that happened that one morning at 2:17 a.m., which also very ironic that my showing for this movie was at 2:17. And I remember before I went into the movie, I thought 2:17 was an odd time. It's like usually movies start at like, 2 or 2:15, 2:30. I was like, 2:17, that's very odd. So I don't know if they did that on purpose or if that was just a coincidence, but my show time started at 2:17. Anyways, at 2:17 in the morning, this one, I think it's a third grade class, elementary school class, they all get out of their beds and they all leave their homes at the same time. This entire class leaves minus one child. And it's the mystery of why they left. Was this something that they decided? Did somebody make them leave? What is happening here? And they all leave the same way. They open the front door and they all run with their arms out like this and they go into the distance and nobody knows where they went. Some people have footage and ring camera footage seeing them leave, but after they get out of sight, nobody knows where they ended up. They never came back, and it's just this one classroom minus one child. So, there's detectives that come in, and the people that are really hurting the most is, one, the school teacher of this classroom that everybody is now very suspicious and putting the blame on, and she's going through her own problems, coping with drinking and stuff, and she has issues happening even before this event, but now everyone is coming after her and thinking that she had something to do with it and just giving her a really hard time, and she's doing her best to kind of navigate this situation while everyone is just very, very cautious of her. The actress is Julia Garner. I know she was in Ozark, I think, which I have not watched. I saw her earlier this year in Wolfman, which was a movie that I was very disappointed by, but she was good in it, and she is great here. Another standout to me is Josh Brolin, and I think this is probably the first horror movie I've seen Josh Brolin in, unless you count Planet Terror. And he does a fantastic job as a father trying to figure out what happened. His kid was one of the classroom that went out in the morning and never came back, and there's a lot of sad moments like him, and it's not overdone. It's not like played like super drama. Like, we're not dealing with like Prisoners level drama here of missing kids, but you do feel his grief. He's sleeping in his son's bedroom. He's screwing up at work because he's just so focused on trying to solve this case himself. And I'd say if I had to pick a favorite character in the movie, it was definitely Josh Brolin's character. But there's other intertwining characters too. There's a police officer, there's a burnout druggie, there's one of the other people that work at the same school as Julia Gardner's character. So they're all here and they're all intertwined and they all have their own events that play into the overall narrative of what's actually going on. And I thought the way the story was told was fantastic. Now, once again, this is a very minor spoiler, but I've been talking around it the entire review, is that it's basically done in chapters, where you see each character's POV of particular events moving from character to character, giving you a little bit more along the way. And I thought that was a really clever way to do it. And it can definitely also lead you to be on the edge of your seat, because one story might end at a massive cliffhanger and then you go back in time like 2 days, seeing the POV from another character and then see how it leads up to where the last cliffhanger was. In a way, actually, it reminds me of the writing style of a manga author named Urasawa. He did 20th Century Boys and Monster, where every single chapter would lead up to this massive cliffhanger, and then the beginning of the next chapter, it would go and focus on another character, but then lead us into where that chapter left off. So same kind of writing style, again with the Stephen King stuff, like I said, the small town vibes, the suspiciousness of everybody, a mystery unfolding, stories dealing with children, that sort of thing. That's all tied in there. And again, Zach Kreger, I think, did an amazing job here. I like this a lot more than Barbarian. Now, again, with no spoilers, I will say that there is humor in this movie that kind of comes out of nowhere at times. None of it is the kind of standard like MCU humor where they say a quip or reference something that's happening. It's all humor that's very story based, so it works. But sometimes it does catch you off guard. In fact, I would say both the scares and the humor kind of catch you off guard. They both kind of happen at moments when you're not expecting them to. But I don't think any of the humor here is overdone. It doesn't get as wacky as Barbarian did. But there is a moment at the very end. Like, the ending of this movie is bonkers. It is just, you know, but it works. Like, it works for me very well. I don't want to spoil it. Like, I'll put it this way. If you saw 28 Years Later, the ending of that movie and how batshit crazy, off the wall bonkers it was, if that's like a 10, the ending of Weapons is like a solid 6.5. Like, the ending is wacky, but it makes perfect sense. And I loved it. Sometimes I save spoilers to the end so I can talk about specific things that I really loved or specific things that I really disliked. But I liked most of the things that happened in this movie. So I feel like if I talk spoilers, I'm just going to be discussing scene after scene after scene after scene about why I liked it, you know? And then I'm going to give you the entire movie away. So I would say please go see it for yourself. It might not hit for everybody, and I don't want to hype it up too much, I guess, because I could definitely see a good number of people maybe not liking it and not vibing with the style and the format and the ultimate end result of what's happening and what's going on. That might not work for some people. There were even a couple of moments where I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this, but ultimately it did work for me, but I could definitely see it not working for some people. So I don't want to hype it up to the point where I'm like, oh my God, this is like, you know, the Substance Nosferatu level last year for me. It's not quite up to that level. It's like, I give it a solid 4.5 stars on Letterboxd, and I think that's where I'm going to land right now. I'll probably like it more on rewatches as well. Now that I know everything that's happening, I'll be able to kind of watch scenes in a different context, you know? But yeah, I really, really recommend it. And if Zach Cregger is going to be the guy to do the next Resident Evil movie, I mean, after the Paul Anderson movies and then after the Welcome to Raccoon City, we need some kind of win. And I really do think that he has potential to actually somehow get that to work. Nobody so far has been able to get Resident Evil to work in live action. And I know he did make some comments about like not following the games exactly, yada, yada. And look, you can deviate from the games a bit and still have a good movie as long as you keep the core fundamentals there. But like, I'm getting off track. All I'm saying is that after watching this movie, I do have some faith in him as a Resident Evil director. Although, also after seeing this movie, I kind of want him to do more original stuff. So I'm kind of torn. But anyways, yes, Weapons is my seal of approval. I think it's good. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments if you've seen it. If you go in blind like me, like I tried not to watch any of the trailers. The only thing I knew was a bunch of kids wake up in the middle of the night and run away. And that's like minute 1 of the movie. That happens. That's the beginning. So I didn't get anything spoiled for me, and I think that's the best way to go. So yeah, let me know what you think about it down below. Thanks for watching, guys. Give the video a thumbs up, comment, help it out in the algorithm. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have Patreon channel memberships and all the social media links. You can follow me down below. Could really use the help right now. Even $1 a month goes a long way. Videos aren't doing too great, so anything like that is very, very helpful. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you next time.